Easter's fun for me, I tell you. And the reason I'm doing so many projects this at the moment is because so many people can't eat chocolate. So, but enough of other people. This is something that I've always wanted to make, and it's an Easter bonnet. And all the pictures I've seen are of people wearing straw hats at this time of year when we used to have to dress up for Easter. So before I move this piece of lining, I'm just going to trim it because it's well, it's complete laziness. I'm cutting through the lining, and I'm going to need quite a few layers of this, and every time I breathe on it, obviously it moves, so I can't have my nice strips that I want. So yeah, please bear with me. There we go. Alright, so I've cut 2 strips of lining. I don't know how much I need, I'm just cutting it now so we can get it out of the way. Now I've got some felt left over from the Easter projects, and I've got this cloth. Now this is a wool cotton mix. It's got some glitter in it. I'm pretty sure you can't see, you can't really see, but it's mainly a beige cloth. So I'm going to use that for the outside. I'm also going to use some interfacing because it's should be quite rigid. And I'm also going to sew in some strips of felt. This is to make the woofy bits. Now I've got a beige and I've got a pale yellow here, so, and I'm using the crimping shears. They're just to add definition. They're for no other reason. Yes. So that's that done. Now for the bonnet, the shape is quite standard and it goes over the top of my head, so I need it long enough to go round to there, so I'm going to cut it about there. And obviously I'm cutting it really roughly, and then I need a nice oval shape panel for the back. So put that out there, out of the way. Yes, it's getting quite busy here on this little desk. And I'm going to fold it in half so they match. And it's just literally an oval shape. And then it comes down to a flat bottom. So that's great. Now I'm also going to need, or I might as well line it, just to keep it very, very tidy. The same patterns in the lining. So, and this is just suit lining. It's quite see-through, you know, it's what you would get for making a lining on a jacket. And you either like it or you don't. You know, that's the simple truth. So I've given myself quite a large hem allowance as well, probably more than I normally do, but this is just because of there's a lot to concentrate on, so I don't want to have to worry about keeping my stitches as neat as possible as well. So I'm just going to take another bit of this lining. There's quite a lot of it, you see, and I use that as a hold all, and then I'm going to line this up so that I can just literally take a copy on the lining. Which is easier said than done, I think. So I've got now everything in a workable size piece. See what I mean? There's quite a lot of it. So, I was just chucking the scissors on the floor because I'd use them as a weight. this needs to be larger at the front than it does at the back, but I'm going to use gather to get it to meet in the middle. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to trim, and then I'm going to mark it with a V, and then I'm going to trim at an angle. This is just to take up the excess, okay? Now I'm going to take my 2 panels of the back with the extravagant hem allowance, and I'm going to measure along here. If I do it one at a time, that might be easier. Now, this is the length till I've got to the V. So I need to mark this somehow, that this is where I need one lot of gather to be. And then I'm going to fold this over and I'm going to mark it again. So I know that this bit needs to be taken in to these points. Lovely. And I can do the same again on the lining. Okay, so I'm going to put these to the side. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to take the original bits that I cut and literally just fold them over. This is so that I can make the ribbon, and it's also that I can make the rim around the top of my head. I'm going to use an old trick, and I am going to place this in the centre of it so that I can turn it inside out nice and easily, because I'm quite lazy, you know. If I can find a cheat, I will find a cheat. So we have the trusty sewing machine, and there we are. I'm just going to sew this in and then I'm going to trim it off afterwards, but it makes sense to me. I know it probably doesn't make any sense to anyone else, but when I finish this I can turn it inside out really easily by just pulling the, well, I suppose a bit of string. Think of it as a bit of string. Okay, so I have got quite a boring bit of sewing to watch. Not boring for me, obviously, but boring for you guys to watch. So I am just going to literally run this along here, and it'll probably take me a good 10-15 minutes. So what I'm left with is that, and I don't mind the gather. The gather is perfect. So I'm going to push pause. So lovely. So what I've done is I've run the sewing machine along this, and now I'm just turning it inside out, and it is just a matter of easing it, of tugging it, and then you can see we can trim this end off, and we can use this bit of well, I suppose it's fabric end again for another project. Yes, you may see it again. Now what I'm doing on this piece of the lining is I've still got it on a nice large stitch, and I'm letting it pucker, and I'm letting it ruffle, and I'm letting it twist, and this is going to be for the ruffle on the inside. Okay, just come to the end there, and concentrating. Oh, why did I do that? I do that quite a lot, you know. So that's literally to sort of around there. Okie dokie. So, next step. I think we should sew the hat together and the lining together, and then we can sew the two bits together. Now, that makes perfect sense to me. Hopefully it will do to you as well. Do I need to pause the camera just so I can thread the needle? I I am very good at threading needles, honestly, just obviously not today. Okay, so now we've got the lining of the bonnet and the back bit. So I'm going to measure this up, and I have my marks where I need to get the puckering in. So I need to know where halfway is and where the points are of the corner so that I can get it lined up nice and neatly. So here I am. I now need this to join, and I need to push some fabric, extra fabric in, which I'm just doing with my finger so that my middle mark can join up and my other corner mark can join up. Lovely. I'm just going to pull it round slightly because we're just going round the corner. There we go. So this is the inside of bonnet. Now I have the same markings on here, so I can just double check I know where they are, and I get to sew up until my doofy marker. There's my marker. I'm going to put everything straight, make it nice and easy for myself, and then I am going to literally pucker it with my fingers. So and this just takes practice. It's just a matter of pushing the cloth in and pulling the cloth out. So you can hold the bottom quite firmly, and then you can let the top just take it, and then hopefully you meet at the bottom. So, a good place to stop, and there we go. Sorry, you can't see a thing today. I think I must have moved the camera. And then I've got quite a generous hem allowance so that I've got my bonnet. I know. Okay, so the next part to do is I would like all my floofera in here. So we are going to I start at that side, that'll be better for me. I have to sew there. Now I want these, I don't want a gap in the middle, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these in half and then do the join there, because that's better for me. And it is a matter of lining it all up. And then I'm going to cover it with my bonnet. No, I'm not. I'm going to do that separately. I think it'll be far too confusing. So you can see what I've got. I'm going to follow the line of stitches on the ruffly bit, and I've got my 2 bits of felt in between the fabric and there, and I have got to stop and put more felt in. Now, because I haven't changed, I was on a large stitch before so that the machine naturally ruffled it. I am still on that large stitch because I am now sewing quite a lot of material. So I'm just going to join up these. That's all placed in now underneath there. Now you can see why I'm not sewing the lining directly in. It's literally because I feel it would be far too much to concentrate on. I want it quite like an organic feel to it, so I'm quite happy just to sew. Obviously I know my machine quite well and everything else like that, so it's a bit easier for me. But it really is, whatever you're comfortable with. We all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses when it comes to sewing. We all have our favourite bits as well. And as my pinning is not very good, my hand sewing is not very good, I'm probably best off just using the machine. So I'm coming up to the end. I was just putting in my last bits of felt because I didn't want the join to be in the middle. And I haven't cut anything to size as far as the felt's concerned. I just made sure I had enough. So there we are. When I sew the lining in, that's what we'll have. And in fact, what I can do is pull a bit forward on this, because I know I've got enough material, so that'll be fine. Okay, what to do next? Alright, I'm going to pause and just get a glass of water and I'll be right back. So hello, I'm back, and okay, now what I've got is I've got my lining and I've got this so that the right side's facing it inwards, so that when I fold it over it'll all be right side, yeah. And I've lined it up, so I'm going to sew along the stitches of my foufouras, and then hopefully you won't be able to see the seams. So it's just literally a matter of going probably nice and slowly along here. There we go. Making sure it doesn't get caught up. And obviously I've got two rows of felt and one row of the lining and then one row of the cloth. Although this cloth is quite thin, so it's all fine. There we go, just coming up to the end, and this is the hem allowance. Okay, so we are getting there. I don't know why I even try to break the thread every now and again. Here we go. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to put a little rim over the top with the cloth, so because it's that's what it's going to look like. So I just want to top stitch a row over there. So what I've got to make sure is I don't get my lining caught up, and I keep it nice and level because it's going to show. Okay, so I'm ready to go. Now of course you can pin this or however you prefer. I'm just going to do it. I suppose if all three layers of fabric, all three types of fabric were okay to iron, then it might be an idea to iron this before you do it. But I'm quite happy just to sew it, so. There we are, I'm just coming towards the end. Still making sure that I haven't got my lining caught up or anything. So the next thing to do, it's quite near the end now, all I have to do is sew in the ribbons, and then I have to sew the sides together. So now you can either use bought ribbons, or this is the stuff I turned inside out. So let's cut that there. I don't want too much, but I do want some. And then they are going on this corner, so which is the right side. And then I have to join this all together. Okay, so I'd like my ribbons to go downwards, and then I'm picking up the lining and then pulling it together. Now what I really should have done, and I didn't at the time because I didn't think, is have a point where I can turn it inside out. Now I suppose what I'm going to have to do is I can either unpick it or I can just leave it at the back because of I would have liked it to have been inside the lining. Now I'm pretty sure that the ribbon, the made ribbon, has just fallen out again, so oh yes, I wouldn't want you to think that I cheat, you see, by doing everything difficult off screen, or not doing it at all really, but there we are. So I've got everything in place now, and I've got a firm grip on it. I'm going to get it into the machine. Okay, so I've stopped at the back of my head. The reason for this is where I'm going to turn it all inside out. So I'm just going to do the other side. I need to have the ribbon facing downwards, and I need this all folded together. and I need the ribbon on in between. So I'm just tucking that out of the way because the last thing I want to do is literally on the last step I get the ribbon caught up and sew over it. So make sure that I've got all my pieces. Lovely. Now the moment of truth. Have I got my ribbons sewn in? Because they were being tricky. One in. So I suppose the moment of truth, really. My Easter bonnet. Oh, I do feel a bit silly. But I've always wanted to make one of these, so, I don't know. I just thought it was all very simple. Okay, I'm going to stitch up the back. That's just where I turned it round. And, yeah, pretty much. I think I'm finished. Anyway, thank you for watching. Yes, do subscribe, do like me on Facebook, and do try and catch me again sometime. Thank you, and have a lovely Easter.